So, hi everyone. Welcome to our new issue of our podcast, BA Day Afterwork Talks. And today we'll have a really interesting topic about allyship and equality in Agile projects. We have a very interesting guest, but now let me just remind you that you have, as always, two hosts. Me, Alexander Moskalyuk, I am IT professional with more than 20 years in IT and certified business analyst, and Rainer, the host of the organizer of European BA Day conference.
Yes, thank you, Alexander, for the nice words. Yes, I'm keen to listen to the discussion today and to participate. So the European BA Day will happen the fifth time now, May 16. So in a few weeks, and so we are doing this series of webinars, podcasts, and other things, after work talks, and we have already got many interesting speakers.
Okay, so it's a photo from previous conference that was offline.
Yes, this conference was in Eschborn. It's located close to Frankfurt, and it was the first conference which has happened in the hybrid mode. So after the Corona crisis, we thought about getting more people on board virtually, and this is why we have now switched completely to virtual in the fifth BA day, because this is a much better model for many people who are not who cannot that easily travel. And so just today we have sold tickets to Turkey, to Azerbaijan, and to many countries which are yeah, really far away. And yeah, that's great that well, we are turning global, kind of.
Yeah, and on May 16th, we will have our coming conference. It will be totally online. And go to BA.com and reserve your tickets if you don't have it yet. And just a few words about our sponsors before we will start our discussion. So we have two sponsors, Masventa and IBO. You can get more information about them on our website. But now let me introduce our guest. Rucha, could you please introduce yourself and say a few words about yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much, Alexander and Rainier, for having me here, first of all. And hello, everyone. Good day, based on where you're joining from. I do agree with you, Rainier. Having sessions or conferences online does have a share of benefits. People can literally join from any corner of the world at any time. So I'm Rucha Kapre, and I'm based out of Pune in India. I work with Springer Nature, which is the research publisher, as the global head of DEI data. What does that essentially mean? Is Springer Nature is a research publisher. I'm still into IT. I still work with data. I'm very much a technology and an agile enthusiast. But I use data, technology, and agile principles and values to solve problems around diversity, equity, and inclusion, specifically around the research world. So, for example, a lot of times we see that there are biases in publishing. So, research from specific areas are more acknowledged. Research done by specific people are more acknowledged. For example, if you look at Nobel laureates versus if you compare them with early career stage researchers, someone who's really very new, even if they have a groundbreaking research, the likelihood of their the Nobel laureates research being acknowledged, even if it is similar, is a lot more. So it's a career stage bias. So likewise, there are many biases. How does this matter to us? Like, why are we even talking about research or diversity? Is because the lives that we live in today is the world, is the research of yesterday. We don't realize it, but the technology we use, be it the phones, the vaccines, everything, all the devices we use around us, are a result of research. Imagine this research is done by a very similar group of people. Life would really be boring. So research should not just be accessible for everyone, but it should also be done by everyone. And that's my role currently at Springer Nature, understanding the gaps in researchers by using data. And then, so once we know what the problem areas are, we make it better. But having those baselines is important, and taking a data-driven approach is the most pragmatic way. So that's a little bit about my job. I'm a BA by heart. I used to be a BA. I've headed teams of BAs locally and globally as well. But that's something that can never go away. So the BA practices and principles are something that have been imbibed so deeply. I feel it's a part of the DNA now, not just in a professional life, but also in the personal life. And yes, personally based out of Pune, love the city, have been married for 5 years now, and I love to travel and read. So that's me, Alexander.
Yeah, thank you for introduction, and let's go. Let's go to our topic. And I think the first question, if we have any examples of biases that exist around us, and I think it's even from my perspective, it's always a thing to keep in mind and to discuss, because even in projects, even in IT, it's very often situation when, for example, developers should be just male. Yeah, it's just something like, okay, you're thinking about senior developer, so it's probably will be guy, and QA probably will be, or BA, for example, can be lady. But actually, it's not so straightforward. Yeah, and we have a lot of examples when great developers are girls, and BAs is for me, for example, and Rainer, we are guys here actually. So what can you tell us about biases in agile teams and
Yeah,
everything else?
some people think that because I have already some white hair and I'm obviously more than 30 years in the business, that I'm thinking waterfallish. But this is absolutely not true. I'm an agile freak. And so some people think that I'm coming from an earlier generation where agile methodologies haven't existed. But as a matter of fact, I've seen that agility started to exist in the 90s, more or less. And from the beginning, I was always observing this. And yeah, the bias is that when I'm leading bigger projects, because normally I'm in a position of a senior project lead. Currently, I'm leading a carve out of Heat Berlin. It is sold from Vattenfall to the government of Berlin, and yeah, then the people might think that because of my experience and because of my, let's say, maturity, I'm not a friend of agile working, which is absolutely not true.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. Before I answer this, people in the audience, would you want to share your experiences of any biases around you? If you don't want to, either you can unmute and speak, or you can just key in your answer in the chat window.
Okay, I think they can share it later. Yeah, if they want. Yeah, we can go on with our discussion.
Okay, so again, you need not answer, but just think about it. Like, picture a scientist, and what are the things that come to your mind? Any adjectives?
I watched too much Big Bang Theory, so for me, scientist was male and female. Yeah, and but young mostly.
Okay, and how about picturing a nurse?
Yeah, this will be certainly a lady.
Okay.
Yeah, or girl. Yeah.
So the reason I ask these questions is, of course, a scientist can be anybody. It need not be a male, and a nurse can be both again. Um, this is just to say we're not wrong. It's just an unconscious bias. So we do this very, very unconsciously. And that's nothing but the brain's way of taking shortcuts. It helps us in most of the cases, it helps us in quick decision making. But in some areas, biases do affect. They're not good or bad. It's just that you need to acknowledge that these biases exist and then work on them. Saying you don't have any biases is wrong on so many levels. It would mean you're not thinking, because if you think you have a brain, biases will exist. What is important is you acknowledge them. And why is it even important to acknowledge? So that's something that we'll talk about if you move on to the next one. So if there are biases in your team, in your agile teams, for example, imagine a scenario where you were made to feel that you're being tolerated versus being respected or valued. How would you feel?
Depends of situation, but I think not very pleasant
Yeah,
feeling.
I think your expressions say it all. So what I feel is like growing up, um, after 5 years or 10 years, or maybe 10 years ago, what my salary was, what compensation I received, or what tangible benefits I received, I might forget about that. But individuals never forget about how someone treated them. It becomes like a very specific memory. Uh, so it all boils down by how you're treated, how people make you feel, whether it is being respected, included, and valued. And if that is how you treat people, they automatically end up in a high performing zone, according to the graph that you're seeing. Versus if you make people feel, say, tolerated or ignored, they come into a limiting zone. I'm not even going to talk about the damaging zone. It can actually be very damaging if people feel they're being abused or harassed, for that matter. So getting people into a high performing zone is a win-win. Not only is it good for the individuals, but it is also good for the organizations. And how? So if you move on to the next slide, basically ensuring that people feel respected, valued, and you are giving them a psychological safe space enhances their performance as individuals, enhances the team's performance and the team's dynamic at a team level, and also the company's performance eventually, because it is individuals that make up teams and teams that make up the organization. And also the culture and of the organization improves. Culture is, of course, a long building process, is a very, very long process, but it eventually helps. And what are organizations doing for it? So we spoke a bit about how biases impact, what biases even are. And we spoke a bit about if these biases exist, how do people feel? And if you remove these biases, what are the advantages? But let's talk about what are organizations doing or should be doing. So organizations, yes.
I have a question. We are talking about biases, and of course, everybody has biases. So mostly unconscious biases, yes. Maybe a hard question for you. Let's say I have a bias that I think a person is not performing, and then it turns out that my bias is true. What, how would you cover such a situation? Because I experienced it recently. Um, I, um, I got a new consultant in my project, and I thought, uh, this is probably this is probably hard to get him aligned to the project. It was a bias. I felt it by myself that I was not giving the necessary time to see what he's or how he's performing. And I was biased, of course, yes. But then after a few weeks, I reflected and I thought back, and then I thought, hey, probably it would have been better if you would have followed your gut feeling and simply not engage this guy because it was not fortunate. We had to release this guy again.
That's a good and practical scenario. My question to you would be, do you think it was a bias or it was your assumption that the person is not performing well in the beginning before you could validate it?
I mean, if you see a person, let's say the first hour, and if you talk to him or her, then probably it's not fair to 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 yeah to exactly expect the right answers, exactly expect the right behavior, because every human being is different and everybody is talking in a different way. You have extroverted, you have introverted, you have so many different people, and some people are performing differently. Some quiet people are suddenly coming out with a big thing after you haven't seen them for days, and other people they are integrating. They are communicative. They can let's say um, ignite a kind of team spirit and things like that. So everybody has own skills and own valuable things, and therefore I'm a bit hesitating to say in the first hour or in the first 2 hours, hey, this guy is probably not the one I was looking for. But what I'm trying to say with my remark is that sometimes when I'm yeah, do my own retrospective, let's say, going back to what I've learned, then I have to say, okay, better you would have heard on your gut feeling, because yeah, can be that it was a bias, can be that it was somehow antennas yeah, that I just yeah very quickly had the right feeling.
So I'll put it in two different scenarios. Imagine you've had like enough, and this is just for the purpose of an example, because you mentioned introverts and extroverts, and Elena, I think you've raised your hand, but I'll just quickly answer this and come to you. So imagine you have seen a few people of a similar grouping, for example, introverts, and maybe even from a specific gender or a specific background. In your case, say you've seen a lot of not very good performers, and all of those were introverts. Now there's a new person who joins your team, and you realize in the first 1 or 2 days that this person is also an introvert. Now you've made a mental image of introverts and attached it to low performers. A new person joins in. If you attach this person, who is also an introvert, to being a low performer, that is bias. But if you don't have any background, but your gut feeling just says, then you're making an assumption that this person is maybe a low performer. You don't have any data to back it. In both situations, I think what is important is you acknowledge, number one, that you have this feeling somehow, either it is through past experience as a bias or you're making an assumption, but you acknowledge and identify that you have this kind of a thought. And then second step is you validate it. So the introspection you did was acknowledging. Second is validate it with data. With biases, again, it is very difficult because there is a bias called as where you just want to look at data that is supporting your understanding, right? So this is also one kind of a bias. It's having affinity bias is just looking for people similar to you, or a confirmation bias. So you just look at points in that individual which are confirming your understanding. So identifying the types of biases that could exist, acknowledging them, and then working on them. It could be a possibility that the person indeed is a low performer, but it should not be basis you confirming that with only the points that you want to look at. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. To what you are saying, just to sum it up from my point of view, is that you need to make it transparent to yourself.
I think the number one step of overcoming and bias is acknowledging it
Yes.
and then looking at how do you overcome it. You're right, Lena, which is intuition is what I also mentioned, but I use a different word, which is a gut feeling. Sometimes you just have a gut feeling, but you don't have data to or for to prove it or not prove it. Identifying that it is just a feeling, but also looking at information in an unbiased way. Again, I wouldn't say look at data to confirm or not confirm it, because again, that could be biased. But the key here is identifying it and then giving enough open space for people without making your assumptions in the first place. Cool.
So
Okay.
let's go to our topics. Yeah. So next one.
Yep. So why are organizations even talking about it? And again, this could be like agile organizations or non-agile organizations as well, because they're seeing a lot of improvements if they have teams which are diverse and come from a diverse background and all work together. I don't see anything blurry.
No, no,
Okay.
it's yeah, it's idea. That's what is intuition, yeah, and bias. Where is where one ends and another starts.
Okay, perfect. So basically, this slide calls upon the benefits that organizations which have diverse teams, which make people feel more included and valued, are likely to 8% likely to achieve the business outcomes, 6 times more likely to be innovative and agile, 6 times more likely to be high performing, and 2 times more likely to be financially meeting their targets. There are a lot of examples, especially around product. For example, a PWD, that is people with disability. So imagine you're an agile team and you are building products not only for people with disabilities, but with them. So you have that perspective on the team. You are catering to a very big market. There are 1.3 billion people in the world who have some form of disability, visible or non-visible. And if you cater to products for them, you automatically gain the loyalty of their family and friends, which accounts to 3.5 billion people in the world. And that's more than half the world's population. To top it up, as you age, you tend to acquire one or more disability. And people in this uh, section, people who are about to retire, have a lot of money that they have saved for their retirement. So if you're not catering to this group, you're throwing and burning billions of dollars of money. So it's not only that there is a business case, the one that I talked about. There's a legal case as well in some countries, but most importantly, there's a social case because it's the right thing to do. Just making someone feel respected and valued is the basic humanly thing to do. Yep.
Oh,
Uh,
totally
But
agree.
one point I would like to raise. So I said already that I believe in the numbers, but what I've seen, I was working with many Indian people in Düsseldorf, and I had a couple of them there. So mostly kind of lead BAs or product owners, and there was a team of 16 people I was leading in Hyderabad. And what I've seen is that the leading people in Düsseldorf, that they could easily manage their own people, meaning the Indian colleagues, but when it came to leadership skills, it was hard to them or for them to to apply their leadership skills on European cultured people. So I have a very concrete example. So there was one senior guy from India, and I asked him to be my stand-in while I'm on vacation, and he said to me shortly before I wanted to leave that that he find it very hard to steer, sorry, to control the people which are not coming from his country. So and then so I just want to be a bit provocative. So we say yes, organizations with diverse and inclusive cultures are more performant, but is it sometimes as well an obstacle that the cultures need to be adapted, that they are different, and therefore that you need to have adaptation processes?
I feel the most complex things in the world, or the most complex problems to solve in the world, are not related to technology or products or services. They are related to people, right? Humans and human relations are very, very complex. And as you rightly pointed out, there might be a lot of cultural differences. So some cultures are more prone towards following, some cultures are more prone towards leading. But I think we have opened up, we are global citizens now, and what is important is people also acknowledge. So on one hand, you are giving that opportunity, but on the other hand, is the person ready themselves? And it's a very valid question, and I can relate that with my own example. So when I joined the organization I'm working for currently, and being in India, a lot of times it does happen that you work in an onshore offshore model where you're just being told sometimes in certain roles what needs to be done, and you get that done. In the role that I came in this organization 7 years ago, I was being given the liberty to do whatever I wanted, and I felt lost. Can you imagine, like, you've been given everything you would have ever wanted as an individual, but you're still feeling lost because you are used to a certain culture. And now, all of a sudden, if you're being given the freedom, you are not able to identify how do you even function. It took me some time, but there's no going back now. And people often ask, like, you are based out of India and Pune, and how are you heading a global team? How are there many heads there? I have a lot of people. I don't have anyone from India reporting into me. Everyone is globally located and they're reporting into me. And the reason I'm giving this example is it was a hard transition because I was never aware of the possibilities that were awaiting or what is possible for me as an individual. My managers, similar to what you were doing, were open to it, but I was not aware. So, at one level, managers need to provide those opportunities. On the other level, people also need to become aware that we are living in a global world now. It's not like East versus West, or it's not related to gender, it's not related to tenure as well. I strongly feel we are a knowledge based industry, and great ideas can come from someone who is just fresh out of university. They need not be in the industry for 30 years. But I also feel this is a cultural change, and the hardest changes to happen are cultural changes. They need to happen incrementally. I always give this example. It's like, how do you eat an elephant, or let's say a chocolate elephant, is one bite at a time, and that's exactly how this functions as well. I hope that kind of answers. It was not a question necessarily, but I hope my example is relatable to what you mentioned, Rainier.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for this.
And I want to add from my perspective that very important is the maturity of the managers and also the team, and also often economic situation. Because when it's not, yeah, when people paid not very well, they should be very mature to keep diversity and keep inclusivity on the high level, because it's goes down to personal skills. But when everything is good, people are more ready to accept something else. They're not, yeah, and ready to learn something and accept something, yeah, some other cultures, some other individuals, and everything else.
Absolutely. I think the onus also lies on us as managers to build that culture, like just giving opportunities might not be enough. We really have to nurture and understand and build that rapport to encourage people as well.
Yeah, sure. Okay,
Cool.
so
I, I spoke about diversity and inclusion a bit on this slide, and I would want to elaborate a bit on what it actually means. So diversity is all ways in which we can be different, and we are different. It is a fact. We might come from different cultural backgrounds, social backgrounds, different geographies, speaking different languages, might have our schooling, education done differently. So there are hundreds of factors in which we can be different. And inclusion is in spite of these differences, how is it that we can come together as a team and not just thrive, but succeed? These are just the most basic, simple definitions. And equity, and I have a very beautiful picture on the next one to explain what equity means. It's not giving everyone the same, it's giving everyone enough so that they are on the same leveling field. That's what equity means.
I really like this explanation because it gives, yeah, the sense. And okay, so what's about Agile and DEI?
Yes, so we spoke a lot about what are biases, how do they affect, um, even how does it help to remove these biases and create those environments. And then we spoke about DEI. But what's the connection of Agile and DEI? So very, very loosely translating, Agile teams leverage their unique skill sets to deliver value to the customers in a very fast and adaptive manner, right? Earlier we said like customer is the king, but with everything that we're developing right now, we say like take care of your people, and people take care of everything else for you. By people, it could be employees or customers, and they've always been at the heart of everything we do. DEI, on the other hand, talks about people again, but from a different perspective, where we give them a welcoming and supportive environment. And I strongly feel these two concepts go hand in hand. Even the agile principles and values support it. So if you look at one of the values which says individuals and interactions over processes and tools, and the principle again says like build teams or projects around motivated individuals, give them the environment, trust them, and they will get the job done. So, which essentially implies for agile to work, DI must be at the heart of it. And that's where I see the connection between the two.
Totally agree. And from my point of view, to be effective agile team, again, the team should be mature enough to take some responsibility on some team responsibility about the results. And of course, DEI here works great, yeah, because you just support each member of the team, and they provide you the best they can during
Yep.
the
Yeah,
work.
yeah. The key is that you have that the team has to kind of take over a collective responsibility as a team. Not only that some people in the team take over the responsibility, but that the team becomes um, a whole, not let's say picked out some individuals and say, okay, these are responsible for this and that, but the team as such is responsible as a big whole for the complete result of a sprint, for example, or something else, or iteration or whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, I think when I was talking about agile and DEI, I was just trying to read the room by looking at faces and expressions, for the very reason that all of us have been practitioners or have practiced it in pockets here and there. And we do realize that agile is not a magic wand. It's not going to magically solve all problems. Rather, there was a report that was published by the Business Agility Institute. Even if theoretically I'm saying that these two things should go in hand in hand and there are a lot of benefits, The survey that was done said something else. So if you move on, I have a bit of statistics around the survey. The survey is available for free. It's a very, very good report that they've published based on the survey on the Business Agility Institute. They said, yes, Agile is great, but it has also created some level of exclusions. Rather, 17% people have witnessed exclusions because of certain types of maybe ceremonies we have or processes we have. 11 to 20% methods kind of created also exclusion, because sometimes the stress is also on who are the strongest voices or how many people are good in communicating things, etc. And there were some things on biases exist even inside agile organization. I'm not surprised. I wouldn't say agile organizations. It could be a part of any organization. So these were some numbers. Again, there's more. So what do you think is the solution for this then? Because we are agile teams, we understand DEI is important and both should go in hand. What are the things we can do actively as individuals, and whose responsibility is it?
Yeah, I think the right answer can be that everyone's responsibility and education. Yeah, because it's the things that comes first from my head.
No, you spot on correct. I think it's not a responsibility. A lot of times it happens, right? Like the DI is the responsibility of the CEO, or there's a separate department for it, or maybe the HR department who's responsible for a DEI in the organization. I strongly feel it's an individual responsibility. All of us can do it, but how is the question? And we can do it by becoming allies. Um, I can talk a bit about uh, allies, allyship, but before that, I'm going to stop and I'm going to tell a story. Up for
So,
a story?
of course.
Perfect. So the story is the elephant and the mouse. So in a
Yeah, I
room,
like
there
it.
lives, yeah, in a room, there lives an elephant and there lives a mouse. So for the mouse to survive, the, it has to very, very closely observe what time does the elephant get up? What kind of movements does the elephant make around the room? If the elephant is in the mood of dancing, what moves does it have? What time does it sleep? But now imagine, for the elephant to survive, do you think it has to observe the same things about the mouse?
I don't think so. It doesn't.
Probably not.
Elephant doesn't care.
Yeah, probably not. And that's exactly what a privilege is. So being an elephant is not bad, but it's a privilege the elephant has because of its size. Sometimes, which the mouse is not having in this situation, at least when it comes to size. Sometimes in life, you are very privileged. You are the elephant. But sometimes in life, you're also the mouse. You're less privileged. And that's the thing about privileges, they're never constant. They're very fluid. They keep on changing. For example, staying in India, speaking the local language that I'm a part of here, I'm privileged, right? But if I visit some other country, I don't know the language at all. My privileges have shifted. They've become very, very fluid. And as humans, that keeps on happening. And allyship is nothing but acknowledging that sometimes you might be more privileged, sometimes you might be less privileged. When you're more privileged, you understand that you are more privileged and you try to uplift the group which is less privileged. So on the next slide, there is a theoretical definition, but circling back to your example, Rainier, the one that you spoke earlier about leadership. So you are very, very experienced in it. You tried to ask someone to step up. So you were providing that opportunity. You're trying to be an ally. Going further, you can coach them, mentor them, make them aware that, hey, there are ample opportunities available for you. These are the things maybe you can try out. Don't be afraid. It's just an experiment. Maybe do it for 2 days while I'm here, or shadow me, things like those. So this is basically becoming an ally, as an example. So Allyship is by theory definition, but I think I love the mouse and the elephant example because that clearly explains it. Any questions around allies
I
and
just
allyship?
I just can support from my side. Yeah, I know a lot of I use this technique a lot in my teams. So just create it helps to create very effective and trust in the team and good environment. Yeah, for effective work. And yeah, from my point of view, it's a great approach to work with colleagues here in any team.
Perfect. So
Yeah,
we
I think that it has a lot to do, or if you want to go into a position and to be an ally, then you need to have some preconditions. I think we said it already that education is a very important point because it's very closely bound to your value system. If you've seen that people from yeah, as you say, marginalized groups, that they don't have the same rights, they don't have the same chances, and things like that. And the question is now, does it touch you or doesn't it touch you? Is it of no matter for you? And I think if you have enjoyed a valuable education, it does touch you. For me, there is a direct link to the education and to the values which have been taught to you when you were a young child.
Yeah,
I think
it's
one, yeah, so sorry,
no,
Alexander,
no,
go
no, no.
ahead.
Go on, yeah,
Yeah.
just
So I
support
think,
right now.
yeah, one aspect is definitely the upbringing, as you mentioned. But I would also say, as individuals, like when we grow up, there are a lot of possibilities we are open up to, and there are a lot of things we learn and unlearn. So even having that awareness sometimes, because a lot of people have had a background where they're not aware of such things, or maybe they were not as privileged to have like really even the basic access to education, but having that awareness when they grow up really matters a lot. So it's not about I would say whether you are literate or illiterate, it's about education, like how well you know and understand things eventually. And there are quite a lot of things you can do without any support from anyone. So being an ally, there are certain things which we can do, which I'm going to talk about next. So I've covered this already, which is like you can be
Mm-hmm.
privileged,
I
less privileged.
sorry.
And
Mm-hmm.
as an ally, I think we can move on. That's fine. So these are the barriers. Again, it's not limited. We spoke about a few. There could be gender, there could be career stages, there could be ability, disability, education, cultural background, social background, economic background. Some of the barriers also could be as parents, you might have childcare responsibilities, or as adults, you might have responsibilities, elderly care responsibilities as well. And how is it that irrespective of these barriers, you support and support your team members? And we've seen that a lot during COVID, right? People were so adjusting in spite of being a part of a single team. They helped each other and they uplifted each other. So what are the things? I kind of have a checklist, and I'm just a bit conscious of time because I do want to leave some time for specific questions if people have. So, what are the things we can do to become allies? And if we move on to the next slide, yes. So, the very first thing is identify the elephant and mouse dynamics and acknowledge that a bias exists. It's very, very important. And once you acknowledge it, you try to bring about a change. This could be by reflecting on your ways of working. For example, say you have learned a few things, and Monday you go back to your team and say, maybe I've seen people talk over each other a lot sometimes, especially specific people. Do you think we should change it? Or first you observe it for a week and then you make people aware that there's some people who just talk over each other and again and again. Again, this is just an example. Do you think we should change it? In all likelihood, people might say, yes, we should change it. And then you put the onus on them. So discuss the findings with your team and just focus on one diversity area to begin with. It could be either people talking over each other, or there could be one area which is people don't talk at all because they're not comfortable talking in a big group. Maybe they don't want to share ideas in a big group, or maybe even it's a language problem. So the state that I grew up in, uh, I was privileged to study in a convent English medium school. So I have a specific advantage of language over quite a lot of people here. And when I was studying at university, I observed there were some really super smart people, but they were not very well acquainted with English. So when we had campus recruitment, a lot of MNCs coming in spite of having some amazing ideas, at least then, I don't know if the situation has changed now, there was a language barrier for them to get into. And I still see a lot of young people entering the organization. They might still have a language barrier because they come from really remote places and they're not very well acquainted with English as a language. So when you observe such cues and ensure you support these people in the team by listening to verbal and non-verbal cues. Are they shy, or is it a communication problem? Can they communicate in their own language, even if it's a great idea? So create opportunities for the strong and quiet voices. As a BA or as a facilitator, whenever I run workshops, I ensure it's not just one way of collecting ideas. So sometimes I might throw a question at people and ask them to call out their ideas. At other times, I might just pass on post-its and say, everyone individually reflects and individually writes their points on the post-its, and then we go around in the room. So that very, very positively puts people on a spotlight that you have to write something and you have to share it. So things like this, and practice courage. As I think someone had called out earlier, it's not always easy. And people, you need to call out certain things if they're not right. Sometimes people are not ill-intended. They might be doing things unintentionally. So talk to them, say, I observed this. Did you mean this? Because it might have created a misunderstanding. So basically point it out, check it out, and work it out. Most of the times it might be a misunderstanding. If you make people aware, they might as well think about it. Again, it's also important that if you become aware of something, you shouldn't expect everyone starts doing it, because till today, even you are not aware. So though I have been a DI practitioner, I also feel I'm on a journey. I try and use inclusive language. Instead of guys, I would say folks, which is more inclusive. Instead of he or she, I might say they, which is all inclusive. But if someone is just referring to he as a manager or he as a scrum master, I have no right to judge them. I might later say that, hey, you might want to use inclusive language. But if I judge them, it essentially means I've just learned about this concept 6 months ago. I was similar to what they were. It's a journey, and everyone is on the journey. Some of us are a bit ahead, some of us are a little behind. We really need to be allies to get people along. Yeah.
Can we say that being allies, it's like finding a win-win result? So that everyone gets the best from the situation, from the cooperation, from the working together. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with what you said.
And yeah, and also we can say that all these things were really connected to other techniques. Yeah, when you run workshop, of course, you should keep allow all the stakeholders or participants to promote or give their answers, because you can easily lose some good ideas or something that's important for your project, so or requirements.
Absolutely. And I've seen like sometimes the most amazing ideas come from the most unexpected places, which is why you need to ensure that it's not just the strong voices who get a say, it should also be the quiet voices. And I try to gamify things sometimes, like if you've agreed as a team that you're not going to talk over each other, or if you're going to use inclusive language, and if someone is not following that, what we try and follow is put up a ice cream wheel or a pizza wheel and gamify it. So imagine like there's a pizza wheel, a pie, you divide it into 8 slices, and the moment someone talks over the other person, you just put their name on a slice. So you're gamifying it. And once the wheel is complete, all the people who have their names on the slices buy a pizza for the team. So it's through not people putting people on a spot negatively, but through such gamifications, being with people on the journey and learning things.
Okay, it's a great workshop idea. But there is some how to say, being polite. It's good. You you try to protect other feelings from the other stakeholder feelings or participants feelings, etc. But sometimes being polite not very effective, because have you been in a situation when you during the 1 hour meeting you're trying to say something not very pleasant and there is a real problem, but you doing this is so polite way that it's the main idea, main problem just lost in conversation, all these polite parts. And sometimes when you just talk about this straightforward, it can be easy to solve such problems. What do you think about this?
Yeah, so I wouldn't call this polite at all. So, what I would rather term it as being assertive, right? Sometimes you have to be assertive. Rather, you should practice being assertive. And I don't think being assertive is being disrespectful. If you have a point and you want to make it clear, you can still be clear without being disrespectful to people.
Yeah,
It's a good point. Yeah,
yeah,
totally agree.
Yeah.
I
And you
agree
just don't,
totally.
yeah, you just don't have to be nice for the sake of it. You still have to get your job done. It's important. It's good for everyone, to be honest. If you are very, very candid and put your message in the right words, being assertive, it's quite important because it does less harm to the people, it does less harm to you and to the team as well.
I mean, it's always it's always a question how you deal with situations which, or let's say with worse situation. Let's say you and your team, you are in the middle of a bad situation. You are in the shit. Yeah. So it's not a good idea to talk nicely about it, to be polite and say, oh yes, we can move forward and things. No, you first have to say what is the situation about. But then it is important not to finger point on people and not try to analyze who has brought us into this shit. First of all, it's important that everybody has the wish and the motivation to get as the team out of the shit again. And this is very important in terms of leadership skills, that you don't let's say blame people, that you really try to motivate people to learn from it and to become better and to become again, let's say, to get back to normal. Mostly this is the situation in a project. If you are in a bad situation, that you just want to get to normal, let's say red, yellow, green, and once you have the red status, then of course your primary need is to go back to green, or at least to yellow or amber.
I would just say like By ally, if we think we always have to be nice to people and be polite to people, that's not the correct definition of it. Because sometimes for people to grow, you have to nudge them, you have to like motivate them, sometimes even put them through difficult situations. That's being an ally. It's not about, and you can do this without being disrespectful, which
Yeah,
is not always being polite.
Yeah,
So being
that's
assertive, calling a spade, being transparent about things is what is needed.
yeah. I remember the good point. Yeah, for the meetings that focus on the problem, not on the person.
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, even you focus on the problem and you talk about the situation, not about person. It helps everyone focus on the problem and solve it, but not
Yeah,
to go in the fight and try. Yeah,
it creates
starting.
much more energy, which is energy from everybody, which goes in a, let's say, one direction, meaning out of the problem, solve the problem, get better, and not energy which is between the people and which leads to conflicts. Because there's nothing worse than a team which is not, let's say, bringing the energy on the street, meaning moving the project forward, as let's say in comparison, as if they would put their energy against themselves. So a team which is fighting internally, probably for reasons like bias or not accepting differences, not implicitly they probably don't want, so people, let's say men, they don't want to report to women, things like that. It can be so simple, yeah. But if such conflicts are existing and are not getting solved, then the performance of the team is low.
Yeah, I think if you focus on the problem, it helps everyone, and I totally agree that being ally sometimes it's very useful to give honest feedback on the situation, so it helps people grow. Yeah, but it should be always constructive. It's often very hard to be not emotional in some complicated situations, but when you focus on the concrete some situations, it helps uh, and it helps to be ally,
Absolutely.
good ally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
So is it all, or we can share something else because we are
I think
running out of time?
I think
Yeah,
that's pretty much it from me, unless
just in
you have any
time.
questions.
Okay, so just want to remind that uh, all people who joined us today or who will watch this video later, you can use this Afterwork Talk coupon to get 20% off for the tickets to the conference. And yeah, don't forget to book your ticket because conference is really close and we will have a lot of interesting speakers there. Unfortunately, we won't have Rucha, but we will have your colleague, with really interesting speech as well.
Yeah, and so what we have this time, we have a very interesting price politic, because the prices are increasing the more the BA day is approaching. So I take it that Alexander, you are the expert, but tomorrow, even that we have May 1st, we still have the April prices, right?
Yep, only one day, and it will be our small secret.
Yeah,
A
just
May Day
just as
special.
just as a secret hint.
Yep. So,
Okay.
Rucha, really thank you for being with us. I think it was really interesting conversation. Thank you everyone for joining, and yeah, waiting
Thank you.
you at the conference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big
Thank
thank you from my side.
Thank you so much for having me here. I would say there's just, if you can take away one thing from the whole conversation, I would consider this as a win, which would be in a world where you can be anything, be an ally, but most importantly, also find an ally for yourself
Yeah,
because privileges are fluid.
yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you very much again, and
Yeah.
see you at the conference.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
bye.
everyone. Bye bye.